Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a completely fascinating and honestly pretty chilling ancient supernatural text known as the Brahmapur Puran. If you're into piecing together historical puzzles that somehow bleed right into modern-day crises, well, you're in the exact right place. We're going to break down the terrifying mystery at the heart of this story, using evidence drawn directly from the ancient text itself. So, let's not waste any time and uncover what's been hiding in the shadows for 4 long centuries. So, right off the bat, here is the massive question we have to answer. Why did the Nishirmalos return after 400 years? It's the central mystery driving this absolute nightmare of a present-day crisis in the village. I mean, think about it. After 4 whole centuries of peace, these monstrous entities just suddenly show up to hunt again? To figure out why, the village elder Tantric Maharaj opened up the ancient Birampur Puran to look for answers, and what he read to the terrified villagers takes us way, way back into an incredibly dark and bloody past. Let's look at the exact sequence of events that kicked this whole thing off. Okay, let's rewind 400 years. The text lays out just how incredibly fast things fell apart back then. It all started when the king of Birampur married this remarkably youthful and beautiful woman named Damayanti. And at first, the king was absolutely thrilled. But literally just 3 months later, total chaos erupted. The villagers stormed the palace in a panic, demanding to know why the royal guards were actively killing Nishirmalos and bringing the corpses straight to the king. And when they confronted Damayanti about it, she didn't even try to hide it. She proudly revealed her true identity, which led to the immediate banishment of both the king and his daughter, Princess Meghalaya, right out of their own kingdom. So you're probably wondering, who exactly was this woman? 1,000. That is the number of years Damayanti intended to live. Talk about an extreme anti-aging routine, right? She wasn't just some cruel queen. She was a phenomenally powerful witch. She explicitly stated she didn't care at all about the sanctity of marriage. The entire wedding, the whole royal romance, it was a total strategic deception. She married the king for one horrifying reason. She needed a steady, unlimited supply of fresh corpses. By consuming the blood of the dead that the king's loyal guards kept bringing in, she planned to artificially extend her lifespan by a full millennium. What's truly staggering here is the sheer, audacious scale of Damayanti's takeover. To guarantee her 1,000-year reign of terror, she actually brought in a mantric, a dark sorcerer, and she literally locked this guy inside a single room in the palace. His one and only job? To continuously chant black magic spells, day and night without ever stopping. He was basically acting like a giant supernatural battery just to amplify her dark powers. So, with the king and the princess exiled to a hillside, the entire kingdom was completely under her thumb. Desperate to save their people, the exiled king and princess sought out a wise sage named Brahmvirji. But Brahmvirji delivered some really harsh truth. Damayanti was way too powerful to be killed. She could only be imprisoned. And the steps to actually pull this off were incredibly specific, not to mention insanely dangerous. First, they had to wait for the exact stroke of midnight on a full moon. Second, they had to strike her with a very specific copper knife, and it had to be right while she was distracted by her own chanting. And finally, they had to bury her in the ground before the sun came up, sealing her away in a cave. So the obvious question becomes, who on earth could actually pull off this impossible assassination attempt? Well, Brahmvirji revealed that this ritual required a chosen one. It couldn't just be your average run-of-the-mill strong soldier. It had to be a brave woman with a pure heart who had already saved over 100 people from death. The king was totally stunned. Like, where do you even find someone with that specific resume? But Brahmvirji just looked directly at Princess Meghalaya. Years prior, during this massive, devastating epidemic, the princess had cultivated the seed of the Mrityunjay Amrit tree. And through that, she ended up saving not just hundreds, but literally thousands of lives. She was, without a doubt, the only person capable of stopping the witch. This brings us to what is easily the most suspenseful climax in the text: the graveyard ambush. On the night of the full moon, Damayanti rolled up to the graveyard in a chariot to start her ritual. As she was chanting, Princess Meghalaya crept forward, silently reciting a counterspell under her breath. But here's the twist. Damayanti's dark powers were so vast that she telepathically heard the princess's thoughts. The witch snapped her eyes open, but before she could even react, the princess struck her with the copper knife. And the source material actually notes that Damayanti unleashed a scream so loud and so agonizing that it echoed across the entire kingdom. It literally caused metal pots to rattle and fall right off the shelves in the villagers' homes. The witch was defeated and quickly buried in a cave, while that dark sorcerer back in the palace screamed in total frustration, permanently locked away. You'd think that'd been the happy ending, right? Sadly, this victory was incredibly short-lived. The village celebrated their freedom, but then Saturday night rolled around. A chilling, familiar whispering started echoing through the village. The Nishir Molos were back. They were carrying coffins on their shoulders, actively hunting for victims. When the panicked king and princess ran back to Brahmvirji, the sage delivered some devastating news. Just look at this comparison. Damayanti, for all her power, could actually be bound by spells, but the Nishir Molos? They were completely unstoppable. They viewed the king as a cruel tyrant because of what happened under his reign, and they made it clear they would not stop terrorizing the village until they had his corpse. Now, the princess absolutely refused to let her people suffer for her father's past mistakes. So she did something incredibly brave. She walked right out and intercepted the monsters in the village square. And right there, she made this massive, desperate vow. I promise you that I will bring you the dead body of the king myself. She lied to their faces, telling the Nishir Molos that her father had already fled the kingdom. She struck a super dark bargain. She basically said, if you give me time to track him down, I'll personally deliver his corpse to you. But if I return without him, you're free to resume hunting the villagers. And this, right here, brings us to the tragic brilliance of the princess's strategy. It's what we can call the exile loophole. See, the princess knew she could never actually bring herself to execute her own father and hand his body over to monsters. Instead, she and the king agreed to flee the kingdom that very day, walking in completely opposite directions, vowing to never, ever return. Because she explicitly told the monsters they could only resume hunting if she returned without the body, her permanent exile meant the monsters were basically locked in an endless waiting game. It is honestly the ultimate historical example of exploiting a legal loophole. It absolutely saved the village, but the price, it cost the princess her home forever. And right at this moment, Tantric Maharaj closed the ancient book. The Birampur Puran literally ends right there with their exile. But obviously, this leaves the modern-day villagers with an absolutely horrifying puzzle. Think about it. If the terms of this 400-year-old pact clearly state that the Nishir Molos will only return to the village when the princess returns, then who on earth triggered their arrival today? How could a princess from 4 centuries ago possibly have come back? Well, the answer to that massive question was actually quietly being pieced together by a young woman named Meghna. Back in her room with her friends Ishita and Anuj, Meghna started confessing some undeniable, supernatural clues she'd been hiding. Ever since childhood, Meghna had been having these vivid visions of the Mrityunjay Amrit tree, which is the exact tree the princess planted centuries ago. When she physically stepped foot into the village for the first time, a massive, unseasonal storm instantly broke out. She somehow knew exactly where the secret dungeon key was hidden in the palace, despite never being there before. And the most damning clue of the whole bunch, the Nishir Molos returned to the village the very night after Meghna arrived. Which all points right to this chilling revelation. Meghna didn't just happen to stumble into a cursed village. She actually brought the curse with her. Meghna is the direct reincarnation of Princess Meghalaya. After 400 years, the soul of the princess has technically stepped back onto the soil of the kingdom. The loophole? It's officially closed. The monsters recognize that the princess has returned, and because she obviously didn't bring the king's corpse with her, they have resumed their hunt exactly as that ancient pact dictated. Which leaves us with this final, nearly impossible dilemma. The text of the Birampur Puran gave us all the history, sure, but it offers zero solutions for the present-day crisis. Meghna now carries the terrifying burden of a 400-year-old vow. To stop the Nishir Molos from slaughtering the innocent villagers, it seems she only has 2 choices. Will she have to offer her own life to appease these monsters? Or is there somehow a way to locate the 400-year-old remains of the exiled king and fulfill this dark contract once and for all? It's a huge, terrifying question, and it completely shifts how we look at all this ancient lore. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning everything and keep digging into the mysteries.